Hello, this is Jordan Lassiter, and let me introduce to you Abby Thurman. Abby, do I have your permission to interview or record this interview?
Yes.
Awesome. And I have a copy of the confidentiality statement I had her fill out a few minutes ago. Alright, Abby, please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Abby Thurman. I'm 22 years old. I grew up and live in Troy, Missouri. I attended Troy Buchanan High School, graduated there in 2011. After that, I went to the University of Missouri in Columbia and studied psychology. I graduated there in August of 2014. I am now attending Missouri Baptist to get my master's in counseling, and I currently work at Troy Buchanan High School as a paraprofessional in the special education department. I've been working in human services for 2 years now. First year I did supported and assisted living, and now I'm working for the school district.
Awesome. What made you decide to get into the education field?
At the time I was kind of struggling to decide what I wanted to do with my degree. The position was open at my high school, and it was a place I was familiar, and counseling was always an interest to me, and I figured to kind of get me going on my counseling master's, I could kind of get my feet wet in the working for the school district.
What made you lean towards the counseling side instead of the teaching aspect of education?
When I started college, originally my plan was to become an elementary teacher. I took some classes and it just wasn't for me. I think it kind of takes a special person to be a teacher. But counseling was always an interest to me. I guess what really got me going to go ahead and get my degree started was kind of some influence from my students, just a lot of encouragement from them saying, you know, oh, you're so good at this, I could talk to you about anything, and just like those strong relationships I built with my students and what little time I had known them.
Good. What has been your biggest obstacle that you had overcome in your first year of working in the school district?
My biggest obstacle has been the age difference between my students and I. I mostly work with sophomores and a few juniors, so 15-year-olds, and like I said, I'm 22, so there's not a huge age gap. So that has definitely kind of been an obstacle for me to overcome, because there's not a lot of respect from all kids there, because they do kind of see me as one of their peers rather than, you know, an authoritative figure in their school.
What has been your greatest accomplishment so far?
Oh, my greatest accomplishment. I would say just kind of effectively building relationships with my students. I think in order to, you know, sit there and encourage them to keep up on their schoolwork and to keep up in their personal lives, it's important to have that strong relationship and to build rapport and trust, and that's probably been my greatest accomplishment so far.
Are there any advantages to working in a school you once attended?
Definitely some advantages to working in my former high school. First I would think of is that I know my way around pretty well. Second would be that a lot of the teachers I had in school are still there, and awesome teachers that are there to help me and guide me and answer any questions that I may have.
Along with advantages come disadvantages. What kind of disadvantages are there working?
I'd say the number one disadvantage would be having established kind of a reputation to my name already, since, like I said, some of the teachers and principals that I had in school are still working there, so they kind of knew my name, and that just kind of gave me a little added pressure coming in, just having to really perform at work.
When you're in need and need to reach out to someone to get advice, who do you go to?
I mostly look to either some of the administrators, the principals, or most commonly the teachers that I work with, two teachers that I work with. They know the kids way better than I do, and they've known them longer, and they've been doing this longer than I have, obviously. So, and they're awesome teachers, and they're super effective teaching their students and the kind of students that we have. So any advice to them is always good advice.
When you reach out to them for advice, is it through email, phone call, face-to-face conversation?
It's mostly face-to-face. You know, if something happens during class and we have a few minutes to chat about it after, we definitely will. Or, you know, if if we have the same lunch break, or any passing period is usually when it happens, because usually it's something that needs to be addressed right away and not something that can really wait to be for email or a text message.
Has your personal perspective on education changed from when you first started college and now on to starting your career?
Definitely. My perspective on education has definitely changed. I think I value more education now, higher education and a better education. I think coming out of high school, high school was a breeze for me, so I didn't really think that it was something that had to be worked at and that it was something that you earn. It was just something that you do, is what I thought. So going to college and having help from my parents, paying for my school, and working to pay for my school as well as continuing onto my master's degree, I think I value education a lot more than I used to, and that's kind of helped me to build this kind of standard for a level of performance at school that I can help encourage my students at Troy Buchanan.
Are there any changes that you see in the future for the education?
Definitely. Troy is talking about becoming almost 100% electronic and paper-free in the next couple of years. I think that's great because we advance with the times, but there's also setbacks with the internet and with computers and cell phones during class time and in the classroom. It provides for a huge opportunity for distraction for some of these kids that already have an issue with distraction.
What keeps you motivated day in and day out?
What keeps me motivated, I guess, is your typical answer. It's my student, all of my students. Like I said earlier, I've built these awesome relationships with them, and I really look for them to succeed, and a lot of them have the potential to do so. So what really keeps me going and helps me get up every day is knowing that I get to see my students and that I get to see particular ones on this day, and that today's test day, we're going to do this, we're going to pass. That's what keeps me motivated.
All right, finally, is there any advice you'd offer to a first-year employee to a school district?
Let's see. Some advice I would offer that I kind of wish I had is that you should definitely keep an open mind. You shouldn't come in thinking that you're going to have a concrete plan and that it's going to happen exactly the way you planned out. You need to be able to adapt and to be flexible in order to meet the needs of your students, because every day is something new, and just to remember to be open-minded.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. Again, this is confidential just for the class, and I thank you again for allowing me to videotape it, and have a good night.